A while back, DC started the All-Star imprint, in which high-profile writers and artists could team up to work on a book that would be a complete sandbox for them. They would not be saddled by any continuity, nor would there be any rules. The first book was All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, which received pretty much universal acclaim, not only for being one of the greatest Superman stories ever told, but one of the best comic stories, period. Unfortunately, the All-Star imprint didn't go much further, as the botched All-Star Batman with Frank Miller and Jim Lee received scathing reviews for horrible writing and was never even finished, only publishing 9 of the 12 planned issues over a period of 3 years. So sadly, All-Star Wonder Woman, All-Star Batgirl, and All-Star Green Lantern, all these other ideas never came to be. However, it was all worth it for All-Star Superman. It was one of my favorite comics of all time, and I went into this movie with both high anticipation and high trepidation. The story is basically that Superman finds out that he's dying after a plot by Lex Luthor leaves him poisoned by a huge dose of solar radiation. However, in the time before his imminent demise, he has several last feats to perform, as well as ensuring the future beyond him. It's also a rather personal story, as it focuses greatly on his relationship with Lois Lane and how she reacts to finding out that he's terminally ill. The movie follows the book for the most part, though at only about an hour and 15 minutes long, it cuts a few parts. Gone is the long flashback showing the death of Superman's adopted father, as well as the time traveling with the Supermen of the future and the Chronovore. Also gone is some of the side stories with Jimmy Olsen going to the moon and temporarily being transformed into Doomsday. The cuts are practical, as these plots aren't necessary to tell the story, but at only 75 minutes, I feel they could have adapted these plots to make it a feature-length film. There's also a few minor changes here and there. The biggest one is that rather than Superman leaving Quintum his genetic code so that Quintum can possibly make a second Superman, rather Lex Luthor actually does it in a way of atoning. The book left Luthor's fate rather ambiguous. We know that he was to be executed, but we don't really know how he felt after his persona-altering epiphany in the ending. Personally, I prefer the way the book handled it, but it's a fairly logical choice. All-Star Superman is also wonderfully animated, giving us a great approximation of Frank Quitely's beautiful art, and I have to also praise the musical score for perfectly accentuating the film. All-Star Superman could have been perfect, but it's just too short. In a way, that's a compliment. You want more of the film. You want the missing pieces. You want to see Jimmy Olsen as Doomsday. You want to see the heart-wrenching moment that Clark realizes he can't hear his father's heartbeat any longer. You want the ambiguous ending. But what's left is a damn fine adaptation. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, with the caveat that if you enjoy it, seek out the graphic novel, which was published in 2 parts. Perhaps they felt the story was too big to adapt in its full state, but considering how well they did with the majority of it, I have to say that they would have done even better to do the whole thing.